Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. This is Josh19, your host. So today I'm going to be doing a World of Warships Legends video. I'm going to be talking about basically the concept of the game, what your goals are, and how you can upgrade your ships. So we'll start with pretty much trying to do this. So there are currently two available game modes. There's versus AI, where you play against bots with other players, or there's standard, where you fight against real players and randomly and on random teams. There's also seasons, which are ranked, and there's arena, which there's no ongoing season at the moment. There's like 9 different countries or 9 different groups of ships you can be. There's America, Japan, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia or Soviet Union, Italy, the Pan-Asian, which is basically like China, and this is just your premium ships. So everyone except pretty much America, Japan, Britain, and Germany all have anything from destroyers, battleships, cruisers, and carriers. France, the Soviet Union now has aircraft carriers too. I didn't know that. Okay, so the Soviet Union now has aircraft carriers too. But France, Italy, and Pan-Asian, basically China, as I call, they don't have aircraft carriers, and China or Pan-Asian only has destroyers. As you can see, I mostly play as the Americans. I only have 2 destroyers. I have the Terror 2 and 3 destroyers. But for cruisers, I have the Albany, the St. Louis, the Phoenix, the Omaha, the Pensacola, the New Orleans, and the Dallas. For battleships, I mostly play as battleships, just because why not? You first get the Wyoming, which is the Terror 3 ship. The Wyoming looks like this. Now, the history of the Wyoming, it was the first dreadnoughts. Yeah, it was the first generation battleship built by the U.S. Navy. Right now she has her second hull upgrade on. Her first hull has cage mast, not tripod mast. But she has 6 dual mounted guns on her. So she has quite a bit of firepower. She entered service just before World War I in 1912, and there are 2 ships in her series. The next ship you're able to get is the USS New Mexico. Or no, not New Mexico. The USS New York. The New York looks very similar to the Wyoming, except rather than having 2 guns in the center, she only has 1. So she has smaller firepower, but she features reinforced armor and a larger caliber main battery. There were 2 ships in the New York series, and she entered service in 1914. So when you get to New York, you can also get one of my favorite ships, the USS Nevada. Now, the Nevada, there it is. The Nevada entered service in 1916, and there were 2 ships in the series. The Nevada, and I think her sister ship, the Oklahoma. If I was right, both the Nevada and the Oklahoma, I could be wrong about that though, I'm pretty sure they were both sister ships. But anyway, the Nevada was at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. She was the only ship to actually get underway, but she had to beach herself at Hospital Point before, or risk of blocking the canal for months at a time. She is the first battleship you can get that does not have a gun in the center. Instead, she has 2 on her stern and 2 on her bow. She has 2 dual mount turrets and 2 triple mount turrets. Currently, if you go to Nevada's route, you eventually get to Tennessee, which, like the Nevada, she was also marooned in Battleship Row during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. She entered service in 1921, and there were 2 ships in her series, and she still has her cage mast, and she has 4 triple mount gun turrets, and she's one of the more modern battleships. If you stick with the New York, you get the USS New Mexico. Now, the New Mexico class entered service in 1918, so she's a little older. As you can see, she does not have a mast at all, but she does feature 4 triple mount turrets. After New Mexico class, you get to Colorado. The Colorado is, in my opinion, is weaker than the New Mexico class because she has cage mast and she only has 4 double mount turrets, so they only have 2 barrels on her. But she entered service in 1923, but she was also outclassed of any other battleship of her time, and there were 4 ships in the series. So after the Tennessee, you get the USS North Carolina. Now this is when you first get into bigger, more powerful battleships. She was launched in 1941. She was the first of the new generation of battleships for the United States Navy, featuring radar, bigger guns, 5-inch guns, and more AA guns. And then after the North Carolina, you get the Kansas. Now the Kansas isn't actually a real American battleship. Her year of design was 1918, so she was not built. But in my opinion, she's a monster. She's a little bit wider than most of her other battleships. And size, in my opinion, the wider the ship, the better. She had a more powerful armament, and she was the crown of development process for standard battleships. The other final battleship you get is the Iowa. Now, the Iowa is the first ship of the Iowa class of battleship. Most of you know of her sister ship, the Missouri, because the Missouri was where the Japanese surrendered, ending World War II in the Pacific. She was one of the most powerful battleships ever built. She entered service in 1943, and there are 6 ships in her series. The other American battleships you can get, so some of them can be found in the Bureau. This is where you research your ships. Currently I'm researching the Yamato and whatever this German battleship is. Once I do this one, the red, white, and blue, you can get the battleship USS California, which is also based at Pearl Harbor during December 7th. You can get the Montana class of battleship, which the Montana class of battleship was actually going to be the successor of the Iowa class, because the Iowa class only had 3 triple mount turrets. The Montana class of battleship would have had a 4th turret on the back, and would also have more modern technologies. But after World War II, this idea was scrapped. Once I do the Star Spangled Fleet, you get the USS Oklahoma, which is the sister ship to the Nevada. The Oklahoma, on the other hand, was one of 3 ships that was not raised or was not prepared after the attack on Pearl because she was too damaged. Because the only thing left on her deck were her turrets. Her superstructure, mast, and funnel were gone. So that's all American battleships in the Bureau. If you go to the store, it's raining and great. And then you press the RT, you go to ships and press the RT button, you will get this. So another American battleship is the USS Florida. Now the Florida was a battleship that was not built, but she was in the design. Unlike the Iowa, the Florida had three quad mount turrets, meaning she had 4 barrels on each turret. She was designed to meet the Washington Naval Treaties. And her year of design was 1936. I really have no idea. I don't know much about this battleship. I just heard of it today. Then you have the Massachusetts. Massachusetts was a 4 triple mount gun turrets. My bad, I can't talk. It had 3 triple mount gun turrets. There were 4 ships in her series. She entered service in 1942. She was a South Dakota class battleship. The USS South Dakota was actually one of the most feared battleships. Most people know her as Battleship X. There's actually a museum in South Dakota just for the South Dakota. Then there is the West Virginia. The West Virginia was also at Pearl Harbor during the attack. There are 4 ships in the series. She's one of the Colorado class of battleships. So she was with her sister ship, the Colorado, the day she was attacked. She has 4 dual mount turrets with cage masts. I'm not sure what her other 2 sister ships are, but she entered service in 1923, and she was equipped with, ignore that, she was equipped with 4.6 millimeter main battery guns. I'm not sure what that is in inches, but... And then there is my favorite battleship of all time, the USS Arizona. So the USS Arizona looks very similar to the Nevada class battleships. The only difference between the Arizona is a Pennsylvania class battleship, so her sister ship's the USS Pennsylvania. The only difference between the Nevada class and the Pennsylvania class, other than their armor, is the Pennsylvania class had 4 triple mount turrets, while the Nevada class only had 2, and then had 2 double mount turrets. The Arizona was marooned in Battleship Row on December 7th, 1941, and she was one of the ships that was completely destroyed. A bomb fell through her deck armor between I think it was in between the first 2 turrets, might be next to the second turret, but anyway, and it entered her magazine, and it blew basically it blew the ship apart. The blast was so bad it lifted the bow of the ship out of the water, and in just a few seconds, more than 1,100 sailors are killed. I think it was 1,177 sailors died on the Arizona. So, the Arizona in the game is actually one of my most powerful warships. So that's all the battleships. The Arizona is probably one of my favorites. My other favorite, which I'll get into more later, but I'm going to show you, is a British battleship, HMS Hood, which is actually a battle cruiser, not a battleship. She was the only ship of her series, and she had there's her name. Her name's actually located directly behind the number 3 turret at the back of the ship. but her stern sits really low in the water, which I don't get. But she's equipped with 4 dual mount turrets, and she was the pride and the most biggest and powerful ship in the Royal Navy during the beginning years of World War II. Yeah, she was built from experience gained from the Royal Navy during World War I, and she entered service in 1920. During World War II, I think it was in 1941 or 1940, one of those two. I know it was before the attack on Pearl Harbor. The Hood was in the Atlantic, along with the Prince of Wales. They were hunting the battleship Bismarck. Now, the downside to the Hood, and why she was considered a battle cruiser, not a battleship, was her deck armor was thinner than it should have been. So a armor-piercing round in battleship Bismarck had tore through her deck armor and had ignited the ammunition from one of her AA guns, which had geyser sparks up through the decks. But another shell entered, plunged through her deck armor, direct center, and exploded and blew her in half. As she sank, though, her forward turret fired one last salvo before it slipped beneath the waves. And she was a big loss to the Royal Navy because she was the most powerful warship. They actually wrote a song about her called Sink the Bismarck. So, like I said, I'll get into British battleships more. So yeah, my next video is going to be about the aircraft carriers that just came out. I'll get into more of that later, probably tomorrow. But yeah, so if you like the Navy, you like warship combat, I would recommend that you download World of Warships. It's one of the best games that I've ever played on my Xbox. You can also play it on PC. So hit the like and subscribe button below. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will see you all next time.